Hello. In this week's first episode, Vengeance. Hey, it's a person in a mask out for vengeance that Clark has trouble getting along with. Then, in Tomb, Clark finds a dead body in the town that leads Chloe to being haunted by the spirit of a murdered girl. This is the Smallville Chronicles.
Welcome to the Phantom Zone.
Hello again, I am Lou Gonzalez. Joining me, as always, is Alan Mira.
Hello.
So we are looking at episodes 101 and 102, which is season 5, episodes 13 and 14. It's kind of like a weird way to jump off from like how serious 100 is, and I think it's kind of not a terrible idea to go this way.
Yeah, they went for very, very dark,
but also like a palate cleansing because there's like a lot of goofiness in it as well.
Oh, the first like the bits in Metropolis, very, very schlocky.
So we directly come after like I'm trying to think like the funeral. It's been probably a couple of weeks, and this is kind of the beginning of the repercussions of Jonathan's death. So Clark is in a barn. He's trying to repair a tractor, but he obviously is emotional, so he keeps snapping the tools. Martha comes in and he's like, I dropped out of school for the rest of the semester because there's too much work on the farm. And Martha's like upset about it, but she's also not like pushy about it because they're obviously both grieving. And then she says, I actually got a call from the governor, and since Jonathan did win, they want me to take his seat, which is actually something that does happen in real life. I can't remember there's like a very famous one of like a senator that died and then his wife took office and then she was basically there forever. But she's like, I'm not sure what I want to do. I'm bringing some of your dad's clothes to a homeless shelter, but I want you to go through and see if there's anything you want to keep. And he's like, no, there's nothing. And she's like, oh, do you want your dad's watch? And he's like, why don't you wear it? And Martha's kind of like worried and leaves. It's a lot of Clark's not necessarily going through denial. He's in like that anger stage of grief where he just doesn't want to deal with anything.
Yeah, it's basically him with the red kryptonite. He doesn't even need it. Just anger the anger is fused into him.
Yeah. So we go to is this the first time we've seen Suicide Slums? I feel like it was mentioned, or we saw it earlier, maybe in like the Bart episode.
Yeah, Clark mentions that he had to ask someone in Suicide Slum or Slums where he could fence the amputee player. Bart got him.
Yes. So Martha's dropping off like the stuff, and she gets mugged. They steal the watch and almost kill her. But before that happens, a masked female vigilante swoops in from the sky and beats the crap out of everybody.
I lost it at that point because it's just so ridiculous. Like, what?
Yep. And then they you can hear my dog in the background. I don't know how to describe how they leave away. They kind of jump, but it's like very, they kind of are like super parkour, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to really describe it because they're like, they can't fly, but they're doing more. They're like double jumping. It's like very of this time. Like, I feel like it reminds me of Toad in X-Men, the X-Men movie.
Yeah.
Like how they did him. So it's very similar to that. Sorry. So then we go to Lana asks Clark to get coffee, and he's like, I'm too busy. And she's basically like, you shouldn't bottle up your emotions. And he's like, oh, you don't have to worry about that. And then Martha shows up at home, and she has a huge bruise. And she's like, I was rescued from muggers, but they stole your dad's watch. And Clark basically is like, now I have something to focus my rage on. So he goes to the Daily Planet and to go talk to Chloe to see if there's any leads. Chloe mentions that she's heard
like there's been rumblings about a vigilante in the area, and that she's very giddy about the whole thing, as that's her type of thing.
Yes.
And immediately as soon as that happens, Clark goes in, or Welling is like, or basically says, or is it more of a angry or annoyed the way he confront, like he accuses her of
I think
profiting off his family's pain or something.
I feel like it's more like he's just in a shit mood, and so he's just like being shitty about the situation. So it's more annoyed that like, oh, like, you know, to like Chloe. So like, and then it's also because Chloe's like, you know, look, it's somebody's actually doing good with like here besides you. Like there's somebody else doing it. And he just kind of like doesn't want to hear anything. So he's like just a dick about it. But like he is grieving. So like you have to give him some leeway. But I do think what's funny is here is like, I feel like it's in here where we first see like a very obvious cameras following somebody in the background. That's a woman for the first time. And it's like, oh, I wonder why this camera is like so focusing on this one character that we've never heard or seen from before. You know, wink, wink. So Chloe's like, yeah, I've been tracking them. And Clark's like, it's my fault. I should have took the watch and like taken my mom to the city. And yeah, just like you said, and he gets pissed off at her. And then basically we get the, you know, as he's leaving the office, he gets bumped into by the intern who's wearing glasses and she's clumsy. Andrea Rojas, who apologizes profusely and then shuffles away, much to what we would guess like Clark does in many of the movies and everything when he plays up the Clark person, especially the Christopher Reeve version of like the bumbling, and like Brandon Routh did the same thing.
They actually got to that, actually made it to that point. It's early season 10.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, I don't remember if Clark ever really goes into a full bumbly mode. Like, we definitely Cavill, we never really see any of that because we get like nothing of Clark as a reporter in those movies. So yeah,
there's a scene where the Booster Gold episode in particular, that's the main focus, because you have Booster Gold trying to take Clark's spot in history, and Lois trying to make Clark make it so people look down on Clark Kent so they can look up to the Blur.
Mm-hmm. So we go to Lex goes to the Talon and finds Lana. Is doing the work for Martha, and he's like, what, you know, how are Martha and Clark coping? And, you know, just asking about them in general, because, you know, he's like it's like kind of hard to tell. This is like the kind of point when you don't really like, Lex is kind of turning. So I feel like you don't really know if he's doing it because he's being a good guy, or if he's doing it to kind of get in with Lana. Yeah. So then Lex goes and confronts Lionel, who is basically leading this Apex group to take over Luthor Corp. And Lex can't stop him because like basically for his bid for Senate, like he's going to lose control. And so Lex is pissed, and Lionel's basically like, yeah, well, you shouldn't have left yourself so vulnerable.
Have you been watching Supergirl?
Yes, I think I'm like 2 episodes behind.
Does the name of the character, the main or focus of the episode, sound familiar?
Oh,
yeah.
Yes, Andrea. Okay, I had seen an image of her in a mask. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I was going to catch up on all my CW stuff shows today. But, so I guess this is tie-in. I do think that the Supergirl show takes a lot of the good things from Smallville.
And unfortunately, one of the bad things, or things that no one saw coming, the Wall of Weird reference.
Oh, I don't even remember. When was that?
That was, I want to say, season 2. It's when Kara is like, her friend went missing when she's like a teenager.
Oh, is this friend's name Chloe Sullivan?
No, she mentions that her cousin has a friend who she name drops Chloe, and this is way before the Nexium stuff started coming out.
Oh wow, I feel like I remember that. So that's like the first season on CW.
Yeah.
It sucks all the stuff with the actress, but like the character is a great character in the show. I think that's why she's the only character besides Clark that sticks around through all these 10 seasons, basically.
Yeah.
So we go back to the Daily Planet, and Chloe names the vigilante Angel of Vengeance, which is way too long of a name for a vigilante. The police report shows up, and Chloe's able to get a copy. Until the angel swoops down and tells Chloe to stop her investigation. Clark tries to stop her, but she she is it a palm punch or just an actual fist punch? I feel like it's kind of like a kung fu move, it's like a palm punch.
Yeah, he just gets sent flying.
Because this is kind of, and I do like this part where she's trained and Clark really isn't trained in how to do anything. He just uses brute force, which is always my issue with Superman as a character. So, and basically sends him flying away. Chloe's like, oh my god, so she's real. She's probably the only person who knows your mother, who mugged your mom. And we basically have to figure out a plan to draw her out. So they try to honey trap her with Chloe pretending to get mugged by Clark.
Yeah.
Basically the thing happened. They do it. She shows up and Clark grabs her and masks, sees that it's Andrea, and basically informs him that she had a heart transplant, and her heart is from a victim of the second meteor shower. And with it, basically, she has superhuman agility and strength, which makes a lot
considering where it all everything started from, or the particular organ, it makes sense.
Yeah, which is something other shows have done before. One of my favorite shows that got canceled and it should not have, which was Alphas, had one of their characters is they have they can control their fight or flight instinct, and basically what it is they can control adrenaline, and so that is what allows them to get more strength and speed. So it makes a lot of sense that you could, if you had a magic heart like that, that's what it would allow. Which I guess if she was stronger, she could probably run a little bit faster too. If she could kind of push herself harder, physically. So basically he's I'm looking for my watch. It was stolen from my mom. You saved it the other night. It was my dad and he just died. And she's just I can tell that you're grieving and this is all fresh to you. And basically I needed a heart because I was stabbed in a botched mugging where my mom was killed. And they basically
kind of bond over the whole thing,
over their grief. Yeah. It's kind of like a mini, what do you call that? They have a kind of a meeting of both superpowered people grieving over their
here's
their
parents. Sorry,
yes.
I really wanted to get that in there.
It makes it why don't we have a superhero team up and go take on this gang? So we go back to Martha, who's looking for Clark at the planet, but she finds Chloe. He hasn't answered his cell phone, and she's I bet he's trying to find the muggers. Martha's the only problem is I think that he's he's so guilty and kind of in a denial that he's gonna somehow
become
do something he's gonna do something he can never take back.
Yeah.
And basically she's just Jonathan always knew what to say to him, and Chloe it's tells Chloe that I'm so glad that Clark was able to share a secret with you. And then we cut to our superhero team up. They find the gang, but they refuse to reveal their leader, Snake, which of course the guy's name is Snake. It's
well, I mean, did you see the way he looks?
I know.
The way he looks.
It's just such a dumb gang name.
It was the mid 2000s.
Isn't that the name of the criminal character in The Simpsons?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's so cheesy. And basically, as they leave, one of the gang members calls Snake, and Clark super speed steals the phone from him and takes it to Chloe. They get the address. Chloe calls the police, but Clark's I'm gonna go deal with it myself. And basically, Chloe's no, you shouldn't go, but Clark speeds away. Andrea follows him, and Clark finds Snake, and the two fight. And basically, Snake's I sold the watch, and Clark just is choking him out. And Andrea shows up, and she's "Oh, Clark, you should totally just kill him." And
she basically just pulled a Palpatine. Do it.
Yes. And he's no. And then she's "Oh, if you won't, I will." And basically, she subdues Clark with her locket, and then threatens Snake. Snake is the man who hired him to kill her mother. Had received a call from Lionel Luthor, and basically Andrea's going to go leave and kill them. So yeah, there's lots of. I don't remember. Is she just happened to know about Clark's weakness, or is it because she was following him that she knows?
When she took off, or when she when she opened up the locket the first time, Clark got, they played the sound effect, or they cued the sound effect of him getting sick around it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with every powered character that starts off like with Bart, the same thing happened.
Mm-hmm. So back in the story, basically, Lionel is like chilling at Luthor Corp and is like, "Oh, like, your stuff has failed, Lex." And Lex is like, "Yeah, well, if you don't stop all this, I'm gonna tell Martha that you and Jonathan met right before he died." And Lionel's like, "Shit, okay, I give in." Which is like,
that's very ballsy.
Yeah, but it's also like kind of shows that like some reason like Lionel from almost the jump of the show is like almost like what Lex is with Lana, like insanely in love with her.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, we'll do anything for her. And we basically see the same thing with Lana and Lex. So it is an interesting kind of that both of them are the same in that way. So the other gang members show up. They see that Snake is dead and Clark is all messed up on the ground. So they're going to kill him. But when they grab him, the locket falls. So then Clark takes out everybody and gets to Luthor Corp just as Andrea is about to throw Lionel out the window. And he's like, "Don't do it. You shouldn't do it." Basically, like, since Clark would never let her get away with murder, she like flies, like she like jumps out the window and disappears.
She just straight up jumps off frame.
Yep. And Clark is able to catch Lionel. Martha starts to cry when she sees Jonathan's jackets hanging up in the bar, one of Jonathan's jackets, and Lionel shows up and he's like, "I'm sorry." And he asks about like, "Are you going to take the Senate seat?" And she's like, "No, I'm going to refuse it." And basically he's like, "I don't want the
14 acres of land."
Yeah, just like keep all of it. I don't like, he's just like, "I'm sorry. Like, I know like I caused distress and I feel like I'm partially responsible." It's this whole like, again, it's like Lex earlier, like you can't really tell what Lionel's playing at if he's
it's sort of him playing both sides.
Yeah, he's being sincere for Martha's sake, but it's not really who he is. So the next morning, Clark and Chloe basically learn that Andrea had disappeared, and that Clark says like, "Chloe was right. I shouldn't have gone after Snake." And he was ready to kill Snake, but his dad's voice in his head made him stop. Snyder should have watched this episode. And if Andrea didn't cross any line in Metropolis, like does need somebody like her, and Clark could do what she did but better. Is kind of what Chloe tells him. And Clark's
I completely forgot that we missed it. We left out a big thing from this, big reveal from this episode. Clark dropped out. He dropped out of school.
Oh yeah, I said that very early on, but yeah, he's dropped out of school to like run the farm.
And I'm pretty sure he does not go back at all. Like he has not.
I think so.
Yeah,
he gets a job without getting a degree, which is good for him.
It sounds positive message.
It could happen. If you're a reporter, it's more of just like if you're able to like do the job.
Yeah.
And who you know. So Clark's like, "Yeah, maybe I could, but like I'm not really, I don't know if I could be a reporter by day and moonlight as a crime fighter by night and give hope to the people of Metropolis," which is goofy, but exactly what he does. Yeah. And basically he finally admits that like that he like talks to Lana and he's like, "I'm feeling lost and alone," and wondering if she could talk, and she's like, "You should put the watch on." And then he goes into the house and we actually get like Jonathan's kind of voiceover, and Martha's watching.
This was a clip from last week's episode, or from the last episode, or the last episode of the show we did. And when I chose this clip, I nearly cried watching it. It's just a lot.
Yep. And basically, like they just like see the whole movie and then they embrace in a hug, and that's the end of the episode. So like all the stuff with Andrea, like her abilities is goofy, but the actual content of the episode is really good, and it's like a good way to have Clark kind of address his grief in a way. So all that stuff is good. And yeah, so this to kind of before we finish out. So you informed me, which I did not realize, is that Andrea Rojas is a comic book character.
Yeah,
that I have never heard of. Yeah, Akrata. And she's like a teleporter, it appears in the books, and she can like jump through shadows. So it's kind of Nightcrawler-y. And then so she is in this season of Supergirl, which is interesting. So yeah, like I don't know, she's like I think this episode's pretty good. I would give it like a B plus, and I like a Martha heavy episode, and I think she like kills it in all her scenes in this episode. So she's I guess kind of my MVP. So is there anything else you want to talk about in this one?
Looking at sort of like the behind the scenes stuff, like for example, I was wondering when there's a certain a score that plays when Andrea first appears in the beginning of the episode. It's take on the Batman the Animated Series theme, and seeing like reading that now, in that it actually makes things a little less B movie-ish.
Yeah,
and yeah, it's not a bad episode. It's exactly what you said it is. It's a palate cleanser, but at the same time, it's showing what it shows something that we didn't get to see much of in the original Superman films with Christopher Reeve, like what happened, like the aftermath of Jonathan's death.
Yes, we don't. This is kind of the only like I don't even because they don't even do it in any of the animated stuff. Like I don't think they ever have Jonathan die, or at least like not in an episode or in one of the movies. So this is kind of like the only time ever not in the comics where Clark kind of has to. We kind of have to. We see Clark dealing with grief of his father specifically. And he is a young, like it does. I do like the idea of it happening to him when he's younger, like in this kind of age, like in his 20s, and it kind of being like very, like a big point in his life. So I don't know. I like how they do it. I do think it is like as much as like I had issues with that 100th episode and how I feel like they didn't give Jonathan enough of a good send off. I like how they handle like not just Clark but like Martha and like kind of like the patriarch of both the show and of his life kind of dealing with him. I think you see that in pretty much all of the CW shows have like a patriarchal figure in them, similar to Jonathan. Like you have Joe West in The Flash, who I think is the most like Jonathan.
Yeah.
And then you had, oh my God, I'm gonna, in like Captain Lance in Arrow. I can't remember what his first name is.
Oh, Quentin
Lance, yes. And he's basically the same thing there. Well, then Black Lightning is that character in his show. And then in Supergirl, it was John Jones. Like you always kind of have this like older figure, like male figure specifically, in the shows kind of doing this, which is kind of interesting. I guess Supergirl kind of does both because like at least season 1, Calista Flockhart as Kat is kind of like Jonathan in many ways, and then it gets kind of transferred over to Martian Manhunter when she leaves the show.
Yeah.
Which her in season 1 is like the best part of season 1. But yeah.
So just some little stuff like what happens to the character of Andrea Rojas after this. She would go on to continue in the Vengeance Chronicles, which about six little mini episodes.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. And a year prior, she had done the Aquaman pilot.
Oh, who's she in the Aquaman pilot?
She was Rachel Torres.
Was she the pilot, like of the plane?
I believe so.
I'm trying to remember because there's only like
I think
like
she was
5 characters in that episode.
I think she was his like main love interest.
Yeah, I'm looking it up because looking at her face, yeah, she's like the fighter pilot person. The one that they like do the tease with at the end of the pilot.
Yeah.
Wow, she really does. She doesn't have that long of a career, which is interesting. Although she's still doing stuff.
She's mainly doing Spanish.
So it seems like a lot of like Spanish soap opera-y stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder. I have to see if I can find this Vengeance Chronicles because we might have to watch that at some point. And then like the Chloe Chronicles. I'm trying to remember if they did another thing. I'm sure there's a way to find them online.
And I'm not sure if we're going to get to it because it's quite a large amount of time. But she's mentioned in the Smallville season 11 books.
Oh, that makes sense. Like
specifically by Rose Wilson.
Oh, Ravager.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the second episode. So our second episode is Tomb, which is I always have like weird things with like the spooky episodes, but this also deals with like the mental illness stuff that begins to pop up with Chloe's character.
Yeah.
So basically, during a thunderstorm, Chloe's taking a shower at the Talon apartment. The power goes out, and there's like a ghost looking through the shower curtain, but Chloe doesn't see it. She gets out, and then when she sees like a young girl begging Chloe to help her, Chloe screams. Lois rushes into the bathroom, but she doesn't see the girl, and Chloe's like in the corner with her wrist cut, asking for help. Which they're cut like she was trying to commit suicide, like horizontal slashes on her wrists. So basically we go to the hospital and Clark's meeting with the psychiatrist, and basically they're all like think that Chloe was like basically like she's stressing out over work and school, and she's kind of did it as like an attention thing, but she does have a family history. And Lois is like, oh no, we have like no family history of mental illness. And basically the doctor's like, well, I'm going to treat her like aggressively. Like we're going to keep her in the hospital, keep looking at her. I think Clark is the only one that knows about the mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like not even Lois does. So Clark goes to talk to Chloe. She's like, basically, I don't remember like anything that happened whatsoever. Like, and like I wasn't trying to kill myself, and Clark, and basically like I saw this girl, and he's like, should I tell like them about your mom's mental illness? And Chloe's like, no, do not do that. So he's like, okay. Which we don't find out. I don't think it's till like season 7 that they
we find out, or her mother shows up next season.
Okay, season 6. All right, I knew it was like a season or 2 away. We go to Martha, who's studying the budget reports, like for I guess the state of Kansas. When Lionel comes in, he comes through the back door, and she asks him to use the front door next time or call first. And he's asking if she's considering taking the Senate seat. I guess she's looking at their House. No, she's looking at the Senate reports, right? Like for the state.
Yeah.
And basically, Lionel's like, I'm still sorry, and then he leaves. And she's kind of been thinking about it. We go back to Chloe is hearing a voice begging for her to help. That's coming from the bathroom in the hospital. She goes to investigate and sees the girl again. Lana shows up, and Chloe asks her to help her find the girl. And basically she's like, don't you see the footprints? There's like bloody footprints. Lana's like, no, and like calls the doctor, and Chloe gets upset. And it's like, you guys need to listen to me. And then like they hold her down and sedate her. And then obviously Lana's freaked out by this, and she goes to talk to Lex. And like she goes to Lex's, and he's like kind of he's like angrily on the phone trying to find out where Professor Fine is. Lana tells Lex like Chloe tried to kill herself, and like basically like kind of it's like you were in Bell Rev. Do you think you can like do anything? And he's just like, oh, all right, like I'll make some calls to get the best doctors. Like mental illness is like something I've always dealt with, and like he kind of takes like a good point in this. Clark goes and visits Chloe again, but this time she's in restraints, like she's tied down to the bed. And Lex arrives and basically like, I'm gonna transfer because I don't think this hospital like will do the best thing. Clark's like, I don't think we should transfer. And then when Lex leaves the room, he like gets her out of her restraints and breaks her out. They go to the apartment, and Chloe's like, I didn't mean to hurt myself. And I did see something. And he listens patiently, but he's not really sure what's going on. She sees the girl again and follows her into the bathroom. The girl's spirit disappears in the wall, and Chloe's like, can you just look in the wall, Clark? And Clark uses his X-ray vision, and there is a skeleton behind the wall. He breaks it open, and they see the body, and it's a bracelet wearing a large kryptonite gem. And Clark stumbles out of the room. Chloe touches it, and then basically she's taken over by the spirit. And Chloe looks in the mirror, and we get like a jump scare of like dead girl face.
Okay, it may just be me, but I thought this person was somehow a time traveling, like the actress who plays Raven on Titans, traveling.
She looks just like her, but I think it's more of like goth
effects.
Girl thing.
Oh yeah,
looks like. Yeah, because it's like goth girly looking character. But yeah, she looks very similar. Which I wonder if that actress was even born yet, which makes me feel very
I do not think so.
So Clark takes Chloe to his house. She's like all erratic and nervous and fidgeting and biting her nails. And she's like, the girl must have suffered so much and they need to find the person responsible. And Clark's like, okay, why don't you just like chill here for a minute? And then she rifles through her things and sees that she has a she has a license to carry a stun gun and a Met UID card. And Lois comes by and is like, yeah, I found out who the body was. It belonged to Gretchen Winters. They go to tell Chloe, but like the bedroom is empty. Lana's asleep and Chloe shows up at the dorm. She asks Chloe where she's been, and Chloe asks if she can borrow the stun gun, and she leaves. Then she runs into Lex, who's like, oh, you should come with me and get some help. And Chloe stun guns him and runs away.
Yeah, that was a funny scene.
Clark arrives and Lex is like, I know you broke her out. You shouldn't do this. She's mentally unwell. And Clark's like, you kind of don't know what you're going through. And I think this is kind of like Clark kind of hints like you asked me to do the same thing. And like, I tried. I feel like that kind of gets like a little hinted at here. In Lois's apartment, Lois is in her apartment and there's like an orderly shows up and he's like, I'm concerned. Like basically he's like at the door and he's like, I'm concerned for you guys. Like Chloe's unstable. We're trying to figure out where she is. And basically, yeah, he says like, well, my dad used to manage a Talon when it was a theater. And Lois like, oh, that's cool. Why don't you like go look somewhere else? She goes to call the sheriff, but the guy forces his way back in and then drugs Lois and she passes out. So Chloe arrives where she was supposed to be, where she wants to go, which is at Michael's house. And she confronts him about Gretchen and whom Michael killed 10 years ago. And Michael's like, attacks her and she stun guns him, but she gets distracted when Lois cries for help, who's tied to a chair. Michael comes back and like knocks out Chloe before they can get away. He terrorizes them how his father used to make bracelets with green gemstones. He puts one on Chloe and gives Lois a knife and basically like, if you don't cut your own wrist, I will shoot Chloe. And instead, Lois throws the knife at Michael. He knocks her down. She goes unconscious, and he goes to stab her. We cut to Clark's at the Daily Planet. He finds out about Gretchen Winters and recognizes the dude Michael. He gets the address and super speeds there and takes him out before he's about to stab he's about to stab Lois. He gets weakened by the kryptonite bracelet, and Michael knocks him out. Chloe's like pleads with him, calling him Mikey, and then he's like, and he kind of gets softened and approaches her, and he touches the bracelet, and Gretchen's spirit pops out of it and goes into Michael, and basically when she's in Michael, like stabs the shit out of himself, and then the spirit goes free.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that scene.
Mm-hmm. So we go to Clark's at the farm. He's doing some chores. Alana shows up. They are like, our friendship or relationship is all messed up. We need to talk about it, but they kind of like split ways before dealing with anything. Clark goes inside and talks to Martha and like, oh, you're gonna take the Senate seat, and it's like, you should. That's what Dad would have wanted you to do, and which sets up like a whole bunch of stories for the rest of the series. Chloe goes back to work and basically her and Clark are talking about the whole thing, and Chloe doesn't understand why Gretchen chose her. Clark's like, maybe because Chloe cares so much about other people. And Chloe's like, or maybe it's because I'm crazy like my mom. And Clark's like, no, like, you're not crazy like your mom. And he's like, I don't know. Like, I know where she is, but I've been too scared to visit her. And Clark's basically like, you don't know when you're going to lose that time. So you should go and visit her when you can. So that's where we kind of end, where she goes. And we have a person in a wheelchair looking out of the glass area, like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and she goes and hugs her. And that's kind of the end of the episode. And it is 1000% not the same actress.
Yeah.
Which is funny because, next season we get to see and Chloe's mom. Yes, it's played by Linda Carter, who's been in everything, but obviously was Wonder Woman. And she's not mentally ill. It's just she has a power that she checks herself in with because it's
she can't control it.
Yeah, and it's like too powerful of an ability.
And it's going to tie into the whole 33.1 stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's this episode. It's an okay episode. I think whenever they do like these weird, not like horror, but like spooky stuff, it's never that great.
Yeah, 99% of the time it backfires.
Yep. And so we are I'm trying to remember where we are in the season. We're like just past the halfway point of the season, I believe.
Yeah.
So we do have a couple of interesting episodes coming up. We have our third Justice Leaguer in the next episode, which is aptly named Cyborg for Cyborg. So this is our first live action Cyborg. I would say it's the worst version.
Hey, Lee Thompson Young does best.
They're doing their best. He doesn't look great, and the effects when he's just like human looking, like the effects are fine, and like the backstory is interesting. And the actor is fine.
I mean, he may rest in peace.
Yes, he did. It was a while ago now too. It was like 6 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah. Which kind of ties into this episode because the one we just covered, because he did end up taking his own life, I believe, as well. But otherwise, it's a good episode. It's basically an entire origin story for the character that ties into Superman, like in Clark, which is pretty well done, like way to tie that all in. It makes a lot of sense. We'll talk about it next week, but they kind of get rid of a bunch of other like cyborg related characters. So that's like kind of the only issue with it. And then our second episode, which is Hypnotic, which is the return of kind of Professor Fine and like another power that's kind of somebody that's manipulating Clark in another episode, which is nothing new. So, yeah. And then you pulled a couple of clips for them. So,
oh yeah, I'll sum up. It's for Cyborg. It's Clark and Victor encountering each other outside of the hospital, and then they sort of get into a fight where, Clark wants to find out more. Like he says, "Hey, aren't you Victor Stone? We played each other in high school," and it's a pretty good scene. And then for Hypnotic, I chose a deleted scene, but it's still sort of in the story of the or still sort of important. It's sort of a spoiler, but come on, you know what's going to happen. The episode came out over 10 years ago. So,
Lois.
So tell me, Clark, how long have you been a lying, cheating bastard?
Since when did this become an interrogation?
Oh, since I found you engaged in premarital polygamy in the alley? How can you do this to Lana?
It's not something I planned.
Right, so your tongue just happened to slip down her throat?
It's not how it happened. We met a few months ago in Metropolis. It was love at first sight.
Oh, that is so romantic. You know, I always had this feeling that you were keeping a secret. I just had no idea that it involved two-timing on your girlfriend. So, do you plan on telling Lana, or is sneaking around part of the thrill?
Victor? Victor Stone? Met high wide receiver.
I know you?
Yeah, I'm Clark Kent. I played for the Smallville Crows.
Kent. Quarterback. I remember. Some arm you got.
I don't play anymore.
Yeah, me neither.
All right, so those are those episodes, and we will be covering them next week. Plugs and stuff. I'm going to go through mine quick since yours is probably going to be a little bit longer. Just check out the other shows on here. Every Thursday is the comic show, which we are currently going through. We go through the news, but also right now we are going through Crisis on Infinite Earths. And I think we are going into the fourth episode where we're covering episodes or issues like 6, 7, and 8. I think. I don't remember. But each episode we're covering them, kind of talking about them, comparing them to what we think the CW is going to give us, as well as doing a little bit of like a comic book theater.
Yeah,
all that stuff out.
I love that picture or that comment I saw in Phantom Zone where someone said that they wanted you guys to be their voices or the voices of the characters.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then you got like a big thing because I think your first episode of the relaunch just came out.
Yeah, VGU.TV is back. It hasn't even been, or it's been about 4 or 5-ish years. And myself, Emma Watkins Jr., Green Webb, and Josh Miller recorded a special episode of the Players Club podcast, which is up on YouTube and all podcasts, or a large amount of podcasting services. And for more, go to facebook.com/vgu.tv, and we will be launching on December 1st. Yeah, so for me, it was more of wanting to go back to where I had the best times of my life, if you will. And we have archives from Wells Fargo Games, and we also have new things such as Fantasy Publisher, more roundtables, Fantasy Developer, and my review of Jedi Fallen Order. So on December 1st, go to vgu.tv, simple as that, and follow the account, follow us on Twitter, VGU_TV. So,
all right, did you finish your plug?
Yeah.
All right. So again, technical issues, and I got dropped out. So I guess that does it for this week. Hopefully, I can finish this before my computer dies again. So I'm Lou Gonzalez.
I'm Alan Muir, and this podcast stands for truth, justice, and American way.